welcome. Let's talk about angles. An angle is formed by two rays coming from the same endpoint. The rays are the sides of the angle, and the endpoint is the vertex of the angle. You can name an angle by its vertex. You can call this angle A. You can call it by a point on each ray and the vertex. You can call this angle BAC or angle CAB, or by an angle number that you stick in the angle, angle 1. The vertex has to go in the middle when you're naming this. You can't call this angle BCA. It just doesn't work. The middle letter has to be the vertex. The interior of the angle is all the points that are between the two sides. And the exterior is all the points outside of the interior. Kind of makes sense, right? Alright, let's look at this. What are two other names for angle 1? Well, let's see. I could call it JMK, or I could call it angle KMJ. So angle JMK and angle KMJ are also names for angle 1. So pause and see if you can figure out these two. Pause. Alright, so what are two other names for angle KML? Well, we could call it angle LMK, or we could call it angle 2. Would it be good enough to name any of these angles angle M? If I said to you, what's another name for angle M? Would you know which angle I was talking about? The answer is no. There's not enough information if you just call it angle M. Because you could be talking about angle 1, you could be talking about angle 2, or you could be talking about angle JML. There's 3 options there. So this is a little too ambiguous. So if there's more than one option for an angle at a certain vertex, you can't just call it by the name of the vertex. You have to call it by the 3-point name or the numbered angle. Ooh, the protractor postulate. So the way that we're going to measure angles in this class is by degrees. The way you would write the measurement of an angle is the measure, lowercase m, of angle A is 62. 62 degrees. A circle, the whole circle has 360 degrees, so 1 degree is 1/360th of a circle. The protractor postulate says that if you think about ray OB and then any point over here, that every ray forming OA can be paired with a real number from 0 to 180. And that means that we can get a real number measure for every angle in here. Alright, so the protractor postulate, just kind of like how the ruler postulate was with segments, it's going to help us find the measure of angles. And it's going to be the absolute value of the measure of angle C minus the measure of angle D. Here are some ways to classify angles. Acute angles are between 0 and 90 degrees, not including 90 degrees or 0 degrees. But anything more than 0 and less than 90 is acute. If it's exactly 90 degrees, that's a right angle, and we call those two rays perpendicular. If it's more than 90 but less than 180, we call that obtuse. And if it's exactly 180, we call that a straight angle. Even though it doesn't really look like much of an angle at all, we call it a straight angle because it's still two rays. They're actually what we used to call opposite rays, aren't they? Yes, yes they are. Alright, so what are the measures of angle L, K, N, J, K, L, and JKN. And then classify them as acute, right, obtuse, or straight. All right, so we are going to use the definition of the measure of an angle to calculate each measure. So the measure of LKN is going to be the measure of this ray KL, which is right about here, 145, minus the measure of this ray, which is 0. So the absolute value of 145 minus 0 is 145. That's more than 90, so that's obtuse. What about JKL? That's going to be the measure of this ray, which is 90, minus the measure of this ray, which you can call it 35 or 145. Either way, if we're taking the absolute value, we'll still get 55. And that's less than 90, so it's acute. And then measure of JKN is going to be 90 minus 0, and that's a right angle. So go ahead and pause and see if you can figure out these other measurements and classify them. Okay, angle LKH. The measure of angle LKH is the absolute value of 145 minus 180. 145 minus 180 is negative 35. Absolute value of negative 35 is 35. And you could have got that also by measuring from this side. 35 degrees. Okay. The measure of angle HKN is the absolute value of 180 minus n is over here 0. That's 180. I forgot to classify angle LKH. This is, you'd say angle LKH, since it's 35 degrees, is acute, a cute little angle. 180 degrees is a straight angle, so angle HKN is a straight angle. And then the measure of angle MKH is the absolute value of, oops, I forgot my angle sign here. The measure of angle MKH is 35 minus 180. 35 minus 180 is negative 145. So the measure of angle MKH is 145 degrees. That's more than 90, less than 180. So angle MKH is obtuse. Angles that have the same measure are called congruent. So if we say that the measure of angle A is equal to the measure of angle B, that also means that angle A is congruent to angle B. And it works in both directions. If you know that A and B are congruent, then you can say that their measures are equal also. We mark angles with arcs like this to show that they're congruent. If you have more than one set of congruent angles, you can say, you can put two little marks, and that'll show that the one with 2 marks is congruent to the other one with 2 marks. If you have even more, the one with 3 marks is congruent to the one with 3 marks. So these synchronized swimmers form angles with their bodies, as shown in the photo. If the measure of angle GHJ, that's barely a J. GHJ is 90 degrees, so this is 90 degrees. What is the measure of angle KLM? Well, I got two little arcs here and two little arcs there. That means this must also be 90 degrees. Bada boom. Alright, so pause and see if you can get problem 3. If the measure of angle ABC, where is that? ABC is 49 degrees. What is the measure of angle DEF? Also congruent, so also 49 degrees. Measure of angle DEF equals 49 degrees. So postulate 1.8, the angle addition postulate. It's basically the angle version of the segment addition postulate. If this point B is in the interior of angle AOC, another way of saying that is that they share a side, then the measure of AOB plus the measure of BOC equals the measure of AOC. So basically you can stick two angles together and add their measures to get the measurement of the big angle that they make when you stick them together. Okay. If the measure of RQT is 155, what are the measures of RQS and TQS? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add these two together and set it equal to 155. The angle addition postulate says the measure of RQS plus the measure of TQS equals the measure of the big one, RQT. Then we're going to substitute what we know. And then we're going to combine like terms, solve the equation, add 6 to both sides, divide both sides by 7. We get x equals 23. We're not done because the question asks for the measure of these angles. So we need to plug in for x. So we need to substitute 23 for x. So it's going to be 4 times 23, which is 92, minus 20. So the measure of RQS is 72 degrees. And then when you plug in for the measure of TQS, you're going to get 83 degrees. Okay, DEF is a straight angle. What are the measures of DEC and CEF? Pause and see if you can get it. Alright, so a straight angle is 180 degrees. So I'm going to add these two angles together. They satisfy the angle addition postulate because the point C is in the interior of this angle. So 11x minus 12 plus 2x plus 10 equals 180. I'm going to combine like terms. 11x plus 2x is 13x. Negative 12 plus 10 is negative 2. Then I'm going to add 2 to both sides. 13x equals 182. Divide both sides by 13. 182 divided by 13 is 14. So x equals 14. So then what's the measure of angle DEC? Measure of angle DEC is 11x minus 12. That's 11 times 14 minus 12, which is 11 times 14 minus 12, is 142. And that makes sense because this is a big obtuse angle. This one is an acute angle, so we should get a number less than 90 for angle CEF. That's 2x plus 10, 2 times 14 plus 10. Let's see, that's 28 plus 10, 38 degrees. I'm on fire. Sayonara. Hey, do some practice. Do all these practice problems because that's what's going to help you know if you're ready for the test and ready to do awesome on the formal write-up. Remember that the formal write-up is not a jot down your answer assignment. It is explain to me what you know. I should be able to look at that assignment and see how much you understand about the lesson. I will see you in cyberspace. Bye-bye.